Welcome everyone to another edition of Play It Through, and on this edition it's Michael Jordan, Chaos in the Windy City, brought to us by Electronic Arts. Chaos in the Windy City is a very unique game featuring a superstar athlete, but not having too much to do with the sport that they play. There's only a handful of these types of games that exist in the history of video games, of course one of them being the infamous Shaq Fu. However, Chaos in the Windy City, while not a very good game, is not overall that bad, and does actually feature some cool stuff that has to do with the sport of basketball. So here we go with Michael Jordan, Chaos in the Windy City for the Super Nintendo. At the title screen for the game, you can go to the options, and for the options in this game, we are going to change the difficulty to the highest difficulty. There is no difference as far as the ending or anything goes, but it'll make the game at least a little bit more challenging as I go through it, because I find on the rookie setting it's a little bit too easy. As we start up the game, we get our storyline for the game, and it's a little bit ridiculous. After the storyline, you get to your actual map screen where you can select the level to go to. Unfortunately, we can't go to any other level right now other than the first level, so let's head to the holding cells. Each of the levels is broken up into multiple segments, as you can see represented by the X's on the map. So there's a total of 5 levels that are going to be located inside the cells. As far as the game goes, you play as Michael Jordan, as to be expected, and you use basketballs as your projectile weapon. There's a pretty good variety of different types of basketballs you can pick up as other types of weapons, including ones that are fire, ones that are ice, ones that bounce all over, ones that multiply, and also baseballs. Throughout the game, there's all these different basketball hoops set up, and you can actually do a slam dunk, slamming the ball into that in order to get some extra items sometimes. Drop down this ladder on the far right side to grab ourselves the green key which we need, as well as save the fellow basketball player for this stage. Thankfully, there's only one captive basketball player in each of the levels, and you need to save them all in order to get the best ending. Which, trust me, is not very different from the actual normal ending, so if you don't feel like doing that, you can just play through the game regularly, and you'll pretty much get the same ending. You have 2 different jump buttons in the game. One that's just your normal jump, and then you have the one that lets you go up for the slam dunk. You'll have to use that type of jump in order to actually hit most of the basketball hoops throughout the game. You can also use this to hit enemies that are too low to the ground that your normal basketball can't hit. Every level in the game is a giant maze, and it's your job to try to figure out exactly where to go, where these switches are going to be hidden, where all the keys are located, so you can actually make it to the next stage. It gets a little bit tedious to say the least as we make it farther into the game. As far as the power-ups goes for health and all, instead of your normal power-up being like a health meter or something like that, you actually pick up Gatoraid. You also can pick up shoes like I did earlier, and you have invincibility for a short period of time. They try to do their best to fill in all the different types of things that Michael Jordan was representing at the time. One of your other health items actually happens to be a box of Wheaties, which Michael Jordan was featured on many times over the years. Other than that, it's still pretty much a basic action platformer in its core. So you're going to be running around doing your jumping on short and small platforms, different types that are moving and all that kind of stuff, as well as, of course, firing the basketballs at all the different enemies. There's also a variety of mini games throughout the game that you can get inside for bonus rounds. This is an example of one of them. And for the most part, I will show a few of them off as we go through the game, But since they really don't offer you anything other than giving you some extra coins, which you can see are represented by silver and gold basketball coins, as well as extra health items and all, it's really not necessary to go through them unless you really need the power-ups at that point. One thing that's definitely hard is you never know exactly where the exits of the levels are. There's no big indicator or anything. For example, we just climb up this ladder and that just happens to be the end of the stage as we then go to our score total. As you can see, we have a password below as well as we have Wheaties and Gatoraid. The card keys is represented actually by each of the ends of these levels. When you beat the boss, you get a different card key and you need all the card keys in order to enter the final levels of the game. One big problem I have with the game is when you pick up the extra basketball weapons, which is usually a good thing, it unfortunately automatically changes your weapon to that particular weapon. So you're probably going to end up using ones accidentally when you don't want to, or in a time that's not actually needed, so it can be really difficult and you're going to be constantly switching back to your default basketball. When you drop down here, instead of going to the right where you see the green keyhole, go back to the left and break down the wall with your basketball. There's a lot of these breakable walls and they aren't indicated any differently, so they can be hard to find. Take out the enemy and then open the door in order to find your next captured basketball player. For the most part though, the enemies are pretty basic and you're going to be seeing a lot of the same ones over and over again throughout the game, including the metal spiders, as well as these random zombie type guys with basketball heads. Just use your normal projectile weapon to take them out pretty easily, and then move to the platformer area where they're located. The good thing is when you hit them though, they're usually stunned for a second or two, and that'll give you the opportunity to keep lashing hits until they end up getting taken care of. The floating eyeballs, which you'll be seeing throughout the entire game, are probably the most annoying because they can move in a pretty sporadic pattern and seem to always know how to dodge your weapons. As you can see with the ice basketballs, you can actually freeze enemies in place and they become a platform. There's really only one time where we're going to have to use that throughout the game, but it's useful knowledge and there may be a time or two where you can freeze one of those eyeball enemies to make an easy jump over certain areas. Throughout the game, you'll have to grab onto these zip lines. It may be tricky at first to figure out how to do so, but you actually have to do the dunk motion in order to actually grab onto them and use them to ride over. Here's another example of one of those different types of bonus rooms. In here, you have a time limit and it's just your goal to destroy as many of the enemies as you can, and you get gold coins and other items for doing so. The purple basketballs are probably one of the cooler ones because when you throw them, they actually do bounce, and you can actually use these to hit different types of switches later on in the game. I will do my best to show off each of the extra basketballs at least once throughout the game, but I apologize if I accidentally do miss one. The normal basketball still ends up being the best one because it's just a straight shot, it doesn't cost you anything, you can keep using it over and over again, so it's usually the only item I end up using. Over here we have to wait for the zipline to come back down so I can actually grab onto it, and sometimes it can actually be a little bit tricky in order to grab a hold of it. Run up here next to the gold keyhole and break through the door. You can then jump up and grab yourself the gold key that you can use on that keyhole. By doing so, it ends up pulling over this zipline and we can ride across, then hit the switch and use the elevator in order to complete the level.
Sweet.
At the beginning of the level, walk over to the right, you can grab yourself one of the baseball weapons, which as you can see when you throw it out, it actually comes back to you like a boomerang. Not exactly sure why that would happen, but I guess they needed an item that came back to you, so I guess they chose the baseball for whatever reason. Over here, do the dunking motion that breaks through the floor so you can get down, slam dunk the basketball into the hoop, and you can grab yourself the red key. Over here, take out the zombie type basketball enemy and then grab a hold to the zip line and ride it down. When you get down, jump over to the right and you can actually break down the wall so you can get to the red keyhole. Then go above and you can use your regular keys in order to open up the door for another bonus area. For this one, we pretty much just have to run to the right and try to get as far over to it as we can. The farther you go over right, the better the items are on the platforms above. So work your way all the way over and then climb up and you can grab some decent items. All the way over in the lower right corner is an extra life. The number 23, Michael Jordan's number, represents that extra life, which is pretty much the best item you can get in that area. Over here, break down this wall and climb up the ladder. At the very top, after getting past an enemy, you'll find the green key. Over here to the right, slam dunk the basketball and you get yourself the ring of gold keys that you can use on the normal doors. Then, climb back up the previous ladder that we already had used in order to open up this gold door. Inside is the captive basketball player for this particular stage. Once we have that, you can ride the zip line, taking out the eyeball enemies as you go, drop down on the middle platform as it'll sink when you land on it, and just ride it down long enough so you can grab yourself the single gold key. Over here, use your green key in order to activate this elevator and then use it to ride up. Taking out this gold spider, which is a pain because every time you take out one of these, as you can see, they have little spiders that come out. Breaking down this wall and climbing up the ladder isn't necessary, but you can grab yourself a couple extra items. Be sure if you're low on health to slam dunk the basketball there so you can end up getting a box of Wheaties. Jump up into the upper right corner and you can open up the door to grab yourself one of those gold weapon basketballs. Then you can drop down to the bottom and work your way over to the right. Press this button to lower the elevator and then drop down as well and get on this elevator and ride that down. When in the water itself, you will be pulled by the current, so be careful of it as you try to avoid getting hit by the electric eel in the water. Jump over to the right corner and you'll complete the stage. Start off this level by climbing up the ladder, watching out for the eyeballs. It's going to try to come at you as soon as it sees you. Right up here, take out the first basketball zombie so you can grab yourself the set of gray keys for this level. Over here, all the way to the left, open up the door and you'll find the captive basketball player for this level. Thankfully, he's pretty early on in the stage, so now we can just kind of make it through the rest of the stage not worrying about that. Drop down here and then jump up to this door, opening it up in order to get yourself the set of gold keys for this level. You'll then have to run back and forth on the platforms to get enough momentum so you can climb up by jumping up the platforms. Over here, wait for the elevator, but be very careful as the floor will try to break away from you as you jump on it. You can jump over to the right, watching out for the enemies, and then climb up this ladder. Over to the left is another one of those breakable walls. Break it down, take out the enemies, and open up the gold door to grab yourself some extra health if you need it, while you also wait for the elevator to come back down. Here we have kind of a mini boss. It's a normal enemy we'll be seeing later on, but it's the first time we've seen him here. These silver gorillas climb along the top, and you'll have to actually jump up and hit them with basketballs straight on in order to hurt them. Every time you hit them though, it stops them, so if you time your rhythm correctly, you can get them to just completely get stuck and just keep hitting them over and over again until you take them out. After you take out the second one, you'll get yourself the red key for this level. When you climb up here, do a big jump over the gold spider. Take it out and then grab onto the zip line so you can ride across. Just be sure to keep firing your basketball so you can take out all the floating eyes as you make your way over. Then, ride down this elevator and be sure to hit all the switches so you can open up the door to the right there and climb up this ladder. Once up here, use your red key that we got earlier, bring down the elevator and complete the level. So now we're in the final level of the first area of the game. Ride down the slope and use the momentum to jump up into the upper right corner to grab yourself the ring of gray or silver keys. Be very careful as the water will try to pull you and it will move you rather fast to the right. Climb up on all the different platforms as they slowly sink down when you land on them and grab the zip line on the far right. Then ride it up and get up to this platform where you can then climb up the ladder. You can climb up this ladder and use the spring to grab yourself a few extra items, a couple of coins and one of those gray silver basketballs. Over here, take out the gold spider and grab yourself the ring of gold keys. You can then ride down the slope and go inside here for another one of the bonus areas. Inside this one, all you have to do is keep bouncing up the springs and you can collect a lot of extra items as you make your way up. Then, use your key on the door and you can go through to complete the little bonus area. As you can see, the best item that we could get up there was grabbing ourselves the extra bit of health, so now we have 4 hits for our health bar. When we come out, we can open up the door and save the captive basketball player for this stage. Jump on this platform and ride it down as it sinks so you can grab yourself the green key. Then keep jumping so it rises slowly upwards so you can get up to this platform above so you can grab yourself the gold key. Use your green key, then get up and use the gold key in order to activate another elevator so you can get up, and now it's time to battle the boss of the first area of the game. You'll have to hit the switch on the left so it opens up the gate, and now we meet the final boss for the first time, the evil Dr Maximus Cranium. After a relatively humorous conversation with the doctor, it's now time to battle the first boss, this giant walking mass of basketballs. For the most part, I have full health going into this fight, so I'm going to sit on this platform and just keep launching my projectiles at him. When he walks over, I'll jump over him and I'll be able to avoid his attack. The only time where you'll have to do a bigger jump is when he's about to do his spin attack. But for the most part, as you can see, his punch ends up going below the platform, so it's really not any threat to you. When he does his spinning attack, jump up in the air to avoid all the basketballs that he tends to shoot out from his arm. His other big attack is you can send both of his arms into a giant boomerang-esque basketball hoop. After you deliver enough hits to him though, you'll take him out, Michael Jordan celebrates, and we move on to the next area of the game. In order to get from one area to the next, we actually have to ride a train. These are probably the easiest and funnest levels in the game because they're pretty much just straightforward. You're not worrying about saving one of the captive basketball players, and you can just have fun riding through the trains, shooting at all the different paparazzi and reporters that are going to try to hit you and take your picture. The only real problem in the stage is you have to watch out for all the different items that are coming through, either the steel beams or the different overhead signs that you'll have to either jump or duck under. I honestly feel if they had made the game more like this, of just all levels where it was straightforward platforming and action instead of all the mazes, it probably would have been a much more enjoyable experience overall. Now we're in the next area of the game, the laboratory. Just like the cells, it's still a giant maze, except we have some new hazards to deal with, including electricity. Some of the enemies remain the same, but we will see one or two new enemies throughout the whole laboratory areas. Be careful when you jump up to these platforms, because if you don't jump in the direct center, it ends up tilting one way or the other, causing you to get knocked off of it. Climb all the way up and you can open up this door if you like, grab yourself the green key, and then you can enter the bonus area. Inside this bonus area, just keep running back and forth on the platforms, opening the doors if you like to grab items, while jumping up to the higher platforms. At the top of the area, you can grab yourself a number 23 for an extra life, as well as a 3 heart replenishment with the MJ heart. Up here, we meet the giant basketball brute. This enemy is definitely weird, because every time you actually land a hit on him, he kind of shrinks and does this weird motion type thing, as you can see. He can block your basketballs when he sticks his hand straight out, so you can't hit him directly on, so usually you have to do the slam dunk on top of his head to actually hit him. In the next area, jump up the platforms, watching out for the lightning as it moves slowly upwards as well. The jumping can take a little bit of practice to get used to not hitting your head on the lightning, but even at your best, you'll still probably get hit once or twice during that segment. Watch out for the electricity between these poles as you walk over to the right and then take out the silver gorilla on top of the ceiling. Just remember to keep jumping in a timed pattern, and you should easily be able to take him out. Over to the far right, you can get inside the tube and ride it down all the way to the bottom. Down here, I usually just take the hit from the electricity and grab myself the invulnerability shoes. Make sure to grab yourself the keys and then walk over to the left and use your red key in order to open up this keyhole so all the electricity turns off around this area and you can climb up the ladder. Open up this gold door using your key and you can save the captive basketball player for this stage. Ride the test tube all the way to the top here and run over to the right. Either take out the gorilla or just run past him and you can get to the end of the level and move on to Laboratory Stage 2. At the beginning of the level, jump over the basketball brute, watch out for the gold spider, and climb up the purple ladder. Use the spring to then bounce up to the conveyor belt above. Here, I'm just going to fall through the electricity and take the hit to a new enemy. Just keep firing at the enemy and you'll be able to take him out easily. Even though he can actually have a pretty good reach, your basketball has a much farther reach. By destroying him, you get yourself the ring of silver keys for this level. Then, we're going to fall back down to the right, and then we have to jump through these different platforms once again with tons of electricity going everywhere. Jump over to the right here, take out the giant walking referee whistle, and then continue over to the right, opening up this door to grab yourself a large chunk of health and the red key. The lab levels get more and more confusing as you have more and more of these giant tubes you have to enter in order to ride elevators. Up here, take out the android robot and then start climbing up, hitting the switch to watch out for all the electricity so you can actually get some of them to turn off so you can climb through without taking damage. Over here, break down the wall to the left and then take out the spider to grab yourself a box of Wheaties, as well as you can open up the door to save the captive basketball player for this stage. When you step out of this elevator, walk over to the left and you have a lot of the moving platforms. For the most part, I just jump through, grab the extra health, and get over to the left and grab myself the green key. When you make it back over here to the right, take out the silver gorilla above and walk through the tube. You have a couple enemies here, and then you can use your green key in order to get rid of the force field so you can make it to the next elevator, climb up it, and complete the level. We now move on to laboratory stage number 3. Here we have a good amount of elevators at the very beginning. I'm going to step into the middle one and ride that one down. Take out one of those walking ref whistles and then ride up the one on the far right. You can slam dunk the basketball here in order to grab yourself the green key, and take out the silver gorilla if you want to. To the left, drop through the electricity, and then you can end up walking over to the right and take out the giant snake made of basketballs. Use your green key, and you can find yourself the red key as well as health. So the fact that you walked through the electricity earlier to take some damage really isn't too much of a threat. Up here, you can use your newfound red key and go through the area in order to open up another door that has a floating eyeball. Slam dunk the basketball for a Gatoraid, and then climb down hitting the switch to stop the electricity. Watch out for the floating eyes as you jump back and forth from the ladders to the springs to more ladders as you work your way up. You probably noticed I've taken a lot of damage so far from enemies, but since there's so much health in the game, I never really get too low that I'm running out or threat of dying. The biggest threats to you are going to be certain pits later on in the game or ones earlier on. Use the purple basketball. As you can see, it can bounce around, and you can use that with a slam dunk to get through the hole in the wall, to hit the switch and open up the door so you can get to the ladders. Over to the right there, you can open up the door and save the next captive basketball player. Drop down below, watching out for the killer Doc Brown looking referee, and then go down the elevator and slam dunk the basketball to grab yourself the gold key. Use the gold key over to the left, and you can complete the stage. We're now in the 4th stage of the laboratory area. At the beginning of the stage, watch out for the basketball brute and slam dunk the basketball to grab yourself the gray silver ring of keys. Then when you climb up, you'll have to use the ice basketballs in order to use the platforms to get up to the door above. That way you can save the captive basketball player for this stage. Up here is a pretty good amount of the silver coins. In order to get through the door though, you have to hit the right switches, so open up the 2 middle ones and you can get a giant M made of those silver coins. Then drop down and wait for the walls to disappear so you can actually run through the force fields. Climb all the way up and then jump to the left, taking out the ref whistle, and then you can either run through the electricity or hit the switches in order to stop them. Then use the elevator all the way up so you can grab the green key and then go to the level below. Make sure you grab yourself the invincibility shoes so you can then run through the electricity over the next little area as well as the enemies. Use your green key to get the elevator to drop down and then jump over to the left and you can continue running through all the electricity. Slam dunk the basketball and you can end up getting yourself the gold ring of keys for this stage. On the platform right above, that's the location of the red key. You can then use the elevator next to it to ride down to the previous floor and use that red key in order to get these platforms to start coming out of the walls. You have to do a little bit of tricky platforming in order to get up, but then run through the middle platform and once again duck down here in order to hit the switch to open up the door. Use the ladders to jump up, watching out for all the floating eyeballs, and get into a hallway with those invisible force field type things, as well as a silver gorilla. When you make it up here, take another hit through the electricity, and you can end up getting a pair of those shoes again that you can ride through the other bits of electricity while you work your way over to the right. Be sure to grab yourself the extra life, and you can hit the switch if you like, work your way over to the right, grab the gold key, use it on the platform right below, and you can complete the level. We now move on to Laboratory Stage number 5 and the next boss battle of the game. At the beginning, take out the silver gorilla and then ride inside the middle pod in order to work your way over to the left past the crazy Doc Brown referee and grab yourself the ring of gray or silver keys. The pod all the way over to the right, taking out another one of those enemies, open up the door and you'll find yourself the green key. Instead of going to the next pod, instead drop down through all the electricity, take out the enemies if you like, and grab the invincibility so you can then run through the next couple of enemies. Over to the left is the captive basketball player for this stage. Then climb back up the purple ladder and enter into the pod we haven't entered yet. Down here we can use the green key and then climb into the next pod and work our way down. On the spinning platforms, you can duck down to avoid the electricity and grab yourself a box of Wheaties as well. Then you'll have to climb up some more of those really tricky slanting platforms. Jump up to hit the switch in order to get another one of the gold elevators to come down so you can get to the platform above. Opening it up will take you to another one of those little bonus areas. While not really that important, it contains the golden heart, which gives you your 5th piece of health. Up here, watch out for the ref enemy or run through him, jump up onto the ladder and climb up. You can take out that weird android robot type enemy and grab yourself the red key. Go inside the elevator and ride up to the previous floor, taking out the ref whistle. You can take the next elevator, use the red key to get another one of those elevators to fall down. Just be sure to grab yourself the ring of gold keys and you can get yourself an invincibility pair of shoes. This will give you an easy access as you try to climb up the next set of these electrified platforms. When you make it to the top though, hit both of the switches to stop the electricity. Hit the next one in order to stop the next electricity and open up the wall. We're right near the next boss and I'm a little bit low on health, so if you have any health items at this point, you'll be sure to grab them when you see them. Use your gold key and then jump up and you can get yourself one of those Michael Jordan hearts so you can replenish 3 of your pieces of health before then running through some more electricity and then make it to the next boss battle. The next boss is a Frankenstein monster on a giant skeleton of red bones. Start off by using any of your other items if you want to. It really doesn't matter which one of the basketballs you use because I find that really none of them do any more damage than each other. They may, but even with my experimentation, I didn't find using them really made too much of a difference overall. Work your way over slowly to the left wall. When you make it all the way over there, he'll turn into this weird floating head with UFOs going around it. Run all the way over to the right wall and attack him. Once you do so, he'll break apart, turning once again into the UFOs and ride it back over to the left. Do the same thing by running over to the left, wait for him to form, and keep attacking him. Do this back and forth a few times, you'll be able to take out most of his health here without really getting hit at all. Once you hit him enough though, you'll destroy him, Michael celebrates, and we move on to the next area of the game. In order to make it to the next area, we'll once again have to ride a train while being chased by reporters and paparazzi. Watch out for all the signs and other hazards going to get in your way as you ride the trains over to the left this time instead of the right. When you arrive at the stop for Goose Island, it's now time to move to the next area of the game. This area is the factory area, and once again it's made up of 5 different areas to travel through.
It's showtime.
The biggest hazard during the factory levels is the slime. Whether it's slime climbing on the ceiling, trying to drop down on you, or just the large amounts of slime that you can accidentally fall into. Right over to the right, jump up on the rotating platforms, grab the red key, and jump up to the upper left platform. As long as you can keep Michael Jordan from falling into the acid or slime or whatever it is, you'll be pretty safe throughout most of these stages. Over here, you'll have to use the purple basketball and throw it through the hole in order to actually hit the switch above. You can then drop down and open up the door in order to save the basketball player for this stage. Hit all the switches above so it opens up the door and then drop down to the conveyor belt. Run across it watching out for the floating eyes as they move above, and then jump up to the next conveyor belt with the claws. Over here you'll have to take out the brute from a distance. Usually launching basketballs at his kneecaps is a good way to hit him without him actually being able to block your attack. Over here, ride down the slopes and then walk over to the right on the conveyor belt watching out for the squisher. You can then use this spring in order to bounce on and actually hit the panel. Once you do so, you'll have to jump over to the left using the fan in order to get above, but be sure to grab the gold key in the lower left corner first. One other move that Michael can actually do in the game, and we really haven't needed to use it until this level, is the super jump. In order to use it, you'll have to hold down the L button, which allows Michael to actually run a little bit faster, but can also cause you to outrun the screen sometimes and run through enemies, so it's not necessarily the best thing to constantly be holding. But however, by holding the L button and jumping, you'll be able to do a super jump to get to higher platforms. Use the green key on the switch all the way over to the right and it'll open up the door in order to make it to Factory Area 2. In Factory Area 2, the slime is still there, but as you can see it's yellow, and we also have fire to deal with, which works the same. So instead of dodging slime sometimes, we'll be dodging fire. Up here, open up the wall and jump over to the left to save the basketball player for the level, and then jump back and go up the ladder. When you open up this door, you'll end up getting another one of those invincibility shoes. Use that and then run across the conveyor belt watching for all the dive bomb bats going to try to take you out. This area can be a little bit tricky, but you'll have to climb on all the different moving platforms as they go up the conveyor belt. When you get to the top, make a strong jump over to the right so you can land on the top platform. When you're moving across the conveyor belts, of course watch out for the buzzsaws and do a slam dunk in order to grab the ring of gold keys. Down here, it's probably best to take out the enemies, including the whistle to the right, and you can grab the gold key for this area. Take out the silver gorilla, watching out as you'll have to keep holding the left button as the fan actually keeps trying to blow you backwards, and you can use the gold key to turn it off. Ride down the elevator, take out the gold eye, and jump to the middle platform that's in between the two pits of lava. There's a bunch of the lava pits here, so be sure to jump up and take out enemies from a distance so you can actually make it over these jumps. Duck down here and take out as many of the silver eyes as you need so you can safely jump over to the next platform. When you make it over here, ride down this elevator, even though it looks like it's taking you down to the fire, but that's the exit for this stage. We now enter level 4 of the factory area. And once again we're back to the slime instead of the fire. Watch out for the flipping platforms as they'll knock you down, and then ride the conveyor belt in order to grab the gray ring of keys. Over on the far left, take out the floating eyeball and jump up high enough so you can grab yourself the green key. Back over to the right, you can use that green key, jump over the brute, and make it to the far right ladder. You can then use this spring to bounce up, grab yourself another pair of those invulnerability shoes. Ride the claw all the way over to the right and then drop down. When you make it over here, you'll have to throw out your basketball in order to hit the valve on the left side so that it'll turn and make the slime detract a little bit. With the slime now gone, you can work your way back up to the upper left to an area we already were, but we can drop down now into this room and open up the door on the far left in order to save the basketball player for this stage. When you get down here, grab the key and then also use the purple basketball in order to hit the valve to make the slime go down even farther. Once you get past a couple of the jumping slimes, hit another valve to make it go even lower. Over here you have 3 of the valves, so hit all 3 of them and continue climbing up the ladder in order to jump to the platform and grab onto one of the claws that appears. Use the claw and ride over to the right, hitting the last valve, and then drop down to the slope. Jump across the last few platforms, watching out for the eyes and slime in order to complete the stage. We now move on to factory area number 4. And not surprisingly, we're once again back in the factory area with the fire instead of the slime. Here we have a machine gun type thing that will keep firing out fireballs in a widespread shot, so either have to run very quickly under them or just take the damage as you make your way through. Use a purple basketball on the far left in order to hit the switch in order to open up the door. Then use the spring on the lower left corner in order to grab the red key. Take out the ref whistle, jump up and hit the switch in order to open up the door, then jump to the elevator if you need to, then make it over to the far right where you can hit the switch. Jump to the platform and it'll slowly start moving upwards. Once up here, get out the purple basketball and use it in order to hit the switch in the wall in order to stop the fan above. The brute enemy above here can cause some trouble, so just do some jumping throws in order to take him out at the knees. Jump up, hit the switch in order to open up another one of those doors. You can fall down here to hit another switch and open up another door. Run all the way across past a spider and a brute. Use your keys in order to open up this door to grab the single gold key. Then, on the next basketball hoop, you can slam dunk a basketball to grab the gold ring of keys. Then use the green one to open up the door. Over here, watch out for the giant decoy basketball, then drop down to the far right. You'll have to use the purple basketball in order to hit the switch, and over on the right, open the door in order to save the captive basketball player. Then use your gold key and work your way over to the left over the giant mounts of lava. Watch out that you don't accidentally fall, as it can also be pretty tricky to see with that weird fire effect that's going on. Ride the elevator on the left side all the way up, and you can exit the stage and move on to the final area of the factory. At the beginning of the stage, take out the weird android robot, and then walk over to the left and make a jump over the slime pits. Over here, you'll have one of those giant silver gorillas and a brute to deal with. So I recommend taking out both before trying to jump up to the platform. By taking out the brute, though, you'll end up getting the gray-silver ring of keys for this level. Use the springs to bounce up and get to this hidden compartment where you can find another one of those bonus areas. Also be sure to jump up into the upper left corner and grab yourself one of those gold hearts to get another piece of health. We now have 6 total hits we can take. Then grab onto the zip line, ride it down to grab the gold single key. Use that key in order to get an elevator and then climb up it, hit the button if you like, and then ride across the zip line upwards into the upper right. Then grab onto another zip line and ride it down, but be sure to hang onto it until the moving platform is below you so you don't drop down into the slime. Over here, wait for the elevator to come back down and then ride up, and you can grab some health if you do need it in the upper right. After running through a bunch of enemies, slam dunk a basketball in order to get the red key and then ride down the next elevator. Climb up here and open up the door in order to save another one of those captive basketball players. We've now saved all of them for the factory area. Drop down, use your red key to get to another elevator, and I suggest as soon as it opens up to the right, just drop down so you don't get hit by all the fire that's being shot out of the guns. Over here, I accidentally forgot to grab the gold ring of keys, so I actually have to climb back up, watch out for the brute enemy and the fake purple basketball, open up the door, and grab the gold ring of keys, and then go back down the elevator. Use the spring to get a big jump so you can make it all the way over the giant acid pool in order to keep going over to the left, and make sure you don't accidentally soak Michael Jordan in acid. Duck down here and use a purple basketball in order to bounce it up in order to hit the switch. Then climb up and it's time for the next boss battle. The boss for this area is all I can describe as really a giant green frog with 2 spinning blade type legs. Anyway, stand on the far left or right platform and just keep firing projectiles at him. When he gets over to you, jump over him and go to the next platform and continue the process. As long as you jump before he really gets attacked, you'll be able to keep hitting him without him ever really doing too much damage to you. After a while, he'll start floating up into the air, so to continue the battle, climb up to the top platform and continue attacking him. When he does this though, he'll then start sending out the bottom blade he has. But if you time your jumps correctly, which is pretty much every time he stops, be prepared to jump, you should be able to jump over that blade and continue hitting him without taking too much damage. Once he's done, we grab the third and final key card and we move on to the next area. The next area, instead of riding a train, we actually have to go through a series of tunnels. Inside these tunnels are some bats and normal enemies that we've been fighting throughout the game, and you have to use all 3 of the key cards in order to open up the doors so you can make it to the end. Be sure to run over here to the right and use the ring of gray keys that we got in the tunnels in order to save the 1 captive basketball player in this area. When you open up the green and final key card area, you can then go through and complete the area, and we move on to the final set of stages for this game. The final area takes place in Riverview, which is a carnival type setting. It also probably has the only halfway decent music in the entire game. Riverview is different than the other stages because we actually have to enter some of the different carnival acts and go through them. We climb up and grab the gold ring of keys, and then we drop down in order to grab the gray-silver keys. Save the basketball player and then continue moving to the right. Open up the doors as we go to grab yourself some extra items. When you finally make it to a weird cranium head door with a gold lock on it, open it up with the gold set of keys and go through in order to make it to the next area. This area is kind of a haunted mansion type thing that's going on inside of the carnival. Jump up here, use the basketball hoop in order to grab the silver ring of keys, and then run through the wall over to the right. Over here, you can slam jump the basketball in order to take out the brute enemy as well as the other one so you can grab some extra coins. When you make it over here to the green basketball snake, jump up into the wall and you'll find a door hidden. Open it up and that's where the captive basketball player is for this area. Over here, there's a set of switches which you'll have to jump up and hit all of them in order to open up the area we need to go to. When you're riding this elevator, be sure to duck down and you can hit all the switches as you ride it down in order to open up the next door. Slam dunk the basketball to get a set of keys and then ride up this elevator after using the gold key. Over here, jump over the brute, or take him out, and then use your green key. Climb up these platforms and take out the silver spider, and then stand in the opening and the floor will actually break and you'll drop down. Once down here, watch out as you'll have a whole bunch of rotating platforms. Thankfully, you can see the path that they're going to be taking, and you'll have to jump on them while avoiding all the spikes below and above. So just be sure to stay ducked for the most part. Jump between the 2 zigzag ones and then jump over to the opening to the right and you'll complete this area. Once it's complete, you'll be back outside into the main carnival area. Instead of to the right, we're going to instead now be going backwards to the left, using the springs as we need to in order to get between the platforms. Use these elevators to ride up and do a big jump so you can grab yourself the gold key ring. Then drop back down to the door to the right, open it up, and you'll make it to the next area of this carnival stage. Inside here is a weird funhouse type area. Be sure to run all the way over the broken floor so you can actually grab the set of Michael Jordan's shoes so you can actually have invincibility and can run across the spikes below you for a little bit. Most of this funhouse area is made up of spikes, so you'll have to be careful on the platforms. Slam dunk the basketball in order to grab the silver key ring. Climb up here and take out the ref robot, and then open up both doors if you'd like to grab some extra items. The second door on the left will have a Gatoraid to give you a little bit of health in case you've lost some. Jump up to the top and take out the silver gorilla. You'll then be on this weird rotating platform. Thankfully, you really can't fall off of it, so just run across it and watch out for the iRobots. Over here to the left is a door that you unlock, and that'll be the location of the single gold key for this area. Then dunk the basketball in order to drop down and break the floors, being sure to grab the green key along the way. Down here you have 3 different switches. Be sure to hit just the middle one and it'll open up the area so you can grab the heart and then run through the wall in order to make it to a ladder. Once you've done so, climb up the ladder and jump into the wall and you'll make it to a hidden area where the location of the captive basketball player is for this area. Move across more of those moving platforms and you'll actually see that you're actually at the beginning of this area again. So continue riding the platforms and watch out for the spikes as you do so. The difference here though is instead of going up, we can now go down and use the green key that we got in order to open up the next door. Here, jump up to that rotating weird candy cane platform, and then you'll have a bunch of spinning rotating platforms. Jump off at the right time so you can make it up to the top right. Use the single gold key we got, and then move across the platforms, and you'll have to do so quickly before they end up spinning and causing you to fall. The thing is, the middle one is actually where we want to go, so stand on the middle one and let it drop you, and you'll get to 3 more switches. Hit the middle and the far right one, and that'll open up the door. Drop down here, slam dunk the basketball for a Wheaties box, and then drop down in order to grab the red key. Once you have that, continue over to the right with more of the rotating platforms and zigzag platforms with the spikes below. Open up the red key lock and run through and you'll complete this area. Now we're back out in the main carnival area. Work your way over to the left and take out this brute enemy. Then use the baseball item in order to do a slam dunk with it. It'll go below the platform and grab the key ring and bring it to you, then open up the door to the left and you'll make it to another one of the haunted mansion type areas. This is actually the second to last area of the game, thankfully. Jump on the zigzag platforms and then use the baseball item again in order to grab the key ring that's in the wall. Drop down the broken floor and hit the middle switch here. Then work your way back to the left and climb up the ladder and jump into the wall to find another one of those hidden captive basketball players. With the middle one hit, jump up and then hit the switch and it'll actually make it so you can make it through the walls. It's a little bit tricky to actually get it right, but by doing that way you'll actually be able to get through. Then use these springs in order to make it up to the next area. Here we have some more of those moving platforms with spikes above it, so be sure to duck and grab the green single key. Then drop down to the lower right so you can grab the gold single key. Watch out for the silver gorilla and then jump over to the left where you can use that gold key in order to get these platforms to start moving in and out of the walls. Climb up and use the baseball in order to actually hit the gold ring of keys on the far left. Then you can use the elevator to drop down. Hit the button and the door will open just slightly. You'll then have to use the purple basketballs in order to actually bounce up and hit the switch. Once you do so, quickly jump along the platform so they don't break and you don't fall down into the spikes. Climb out, take out the brood at the knees, and then jump over to use the green key. Take out the brood above, and then he'll end up dropping the red single key for this area. If you accidentally drop down again, be sure to wait for the elevator and climb back up it, and instead jump into the upper left wall. You'll go through and fall through, and you'll end up getting invincibility shoes and a spring that'll actually catapult you right to the end of the level. Use the red key, open it up, and we move on to the final areas of the game. We have one more of the little carnival outside areas before we make it to the final funhouse. Once out here, jump over to the left and use the springs as well as all the platforms. Jump on this platform and ride it down to grab the gold set of keys. Then jump over to the left, open the door, and you're now in the final stage of the game. It's another one of those funhouse areas, and it's completely a pain in the butt to get through. You'll have to use the zip lines correctly in order to make your way through in order to find everything. There's lots of spikes, there's steam coming out of holes, and lots of enemies that are getting in your way to try to drain all your health. So be sure to grab as many of the health items as you can. Jump up here to the upper right and continue up through the candy cane platforms. Then use this spring to jump up to the upper right, and then you can actually slam dunk in order to get the gold set of keys. Use them over here and you'll save the last basketball player of the game. Watch out for the snake and drop down. You may have noticed that on the left was a wall with some more area to go through, but unfortunately you can't go through the wall, so what you'll have to do is keep climbing upwards and dropping down, firing out projectiles in order to break the wall. You can use the purple basketballs, but unfortunately I only have 2 left. So I'll use them and then have to drop down and use another type of basketball in order to finally open up the hole in the wall. I'll climb up one more time and drop down, and now I can actually enter the area. Open up the last door and it's time for the final boss battle of the game. We now actually get to fight Dr Maximus Cranium. For this battle, he's in a giant Michael Jordan mech. The only way to hurt him is by jumping up and hitting the dome on top. Since we have all these extra types of basketballs, just use them all up at this point. However, the best weapon against him is the weapon he actually throws out at us. He throws out black bombs that you can pick up and then launch back at the dome in order to do a pretty good amount of damage. So I'm not quite sure if the other items even do too much to him, but since I have them, I might as well use them here at the end of the game. The good thing about this battle, though, is even though he can do a lot of damage to you, and it's actually pretty hard to dodge him overall, only being able to go under him when he jumps, the good news is there's basketball hoops on both the left and right side of the court, so you can constantly slam dunk to get extra items, which includes the Gatorades and the Wheaties boxes, so you can get your health back up and never actually really run out. Once you've used all the basketballs that you want to, start picking up those bombs and launching them at the dome. Sometimes you may just get silver coins, but keep slam dunking and you'll be able to get health items from it. You can tell you're doing damage to him because the dome will slowly start to crack on his head. Like I mentioned, it's really hard to dodge him, and since he has a pretty big distance he can hit, the only way to really dodge him is run underneath him, and even then his foot can still end up clipping you. So that's why using your slam dunks to grab items is pretty much essential to keep your health high enough to actually defeat him. I usually find slam dunking one of those bombs he throws out ends up usually always giving me health, so that's a plus as well. After doing a lot of damage to him, the dome will completely break and you're at the end of the battle. You just have to hit him a few more times with those bombs in order to do the last bit of damage to actually finish him off. At this point though, he tries to start jumping a lot more than he was before, so this will give you a good opportunity to run underneath of him to avoid getting hit. Once we deliver the final hit to him, the robot will break apart, Michael celebrates, and you can sit back and enjoy the great ending to Michael Jordan Chaos in the Windy City. Now that we are all members of Michael Jordan's Hall of Fame, we now get to see Michael run through a parade of confetti as it comes down from the ceiling, and he gives a nice hand slap to all the members of the basketball team that he saved throughout the game. And that's your ending to Michael Jordan Chaos in the Windy City. While definitely not the worst license-based game I've ever played, it just ends up getting monotonous and boring as you continue farther and farther into the game. That's probably due to the sceneries being the same. There's only 4 real areas in the whole game, and a couple of them actually really look the same. Interestingly to note though, the game was designed by Amy Hennig, who also later would work on the Jak and Daxter series and the Uncharted series. So I guess she got better at story design and game design as the years went on. As the last bit of credits wrap up, we get our special thanks, of course special thanking Michael Jordan. As many people know, Michael Jordan is actually not in too many video games because he was never a member of the NBA Players Association, and because of that he was never in the NBA licensed games. Of course, this game was brought to you by Wheaties, the breakfast of champions, as well as Gatoraid, which is a registered trademark of Stokely Van Camp Inc. Be sure to quench your thirst with Gatoraid today as we look at our ending screen. And after the end, it goes back to the beginning. You can start the Michael Jordan Chaos in the Windy City all over again. But with that, it's going to wrap up this edition of Play It Through. I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course, I hope you enjoyed.